Real Estate Problems into Profits is hosted by me, Andrew Weltchek, a partner at Cohen Hochman Allen, attorneys at law in New York City. In every episode, I interview other real estate professionals, including realtors, brokers, attorneys, investors, and developers of commercial, mixed-use, and multi-use residential properties. And together we provide insights into real estate law. You can find this show on www.chalegalteam.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now, here I am, the host of Real Estate Problems into Profits, Andrew Weltchek. Thank you. Good afternoon. Here we are with my good friends, Dexter Guerrieri and Nicole Katz from the Townhouse Experts, realtors and brokers for the sale and buying of townhouses in New York City, which is an art, not a business, and they are the masters of it. I've worked with Dexter and Nicole for years, and my clients are always happy with their work. Plus, I've been to Dexter's house, which is a townhouse, so I know he eats his own cooking and knows whereof he speaks. And in fact, writes his new book, their book written together, Selling Your Townhouse. You can't get a better introduction to the issues involved in doing that. I highly recommend it. You can get it from me. I've got some extra copies, or on their website. We'll have that information later. But I have a trick question, Dexter and Nicole. In the beginning of the book, one of the first things that you talk about is the reasons not to sell. Now, wait a minute. You're brokers. You're about selling. What is that for?
Well, that's a trick question.
But I think you've got the answer. Enlighten me.
Well, everybody at some point has to figure out whether they're going to sell or not. And up until the time that they decide to sell, they've got all the reasons not to sell. And so one of the things we wanted to address right away is help people to articulate what are the reasons why they would not want to sell and how to discuss those. So that seemed like a logical thing to start out with. And also, sellers appreciate this. They appreciate it about us. We're not just out for the hustle. We're there to be in the townhouse community. And so we find people that smile at it, and then they say, well, that makes sense. You start with, here's the problems.
Yes, and I would say some of our best relationships and transactions were with people that we've worked with for years before actually they decided that they wanted to sell. So they are already comfortable with us. We've met with them along the way, did the values for them. And those ended up always being, I would say, the most positive experiences.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes people will ask for an opinion of value. They'll ask us to come over. They'll ask for advice on how things might be done to the house. We could talk about that if you want to before the sale. And then they decide not to for a year or 2 years or 3 years. And we're just fine with that. We want to be of help to them for when they're ready.
Exactly.
We're here to serve in our business. You know, I've told clients before, I used to think I practiced real estate law, but what I really practice is real estate therapy. And this is what I hear in your analysis. You wish for your clients to make the right decision at the right time. So what often is the flipping point? What are the key reasons that might change in someone's life that would move them to want to sell?
It's usually either some kind of an event, whether it's positive or negative, or they're downsizing. You know, they've been in the house for 20, 30 years. They've raised their kids there. The house is just too big to maintain, and it's time to do something else.
Well, that begs another question that occurs to me, and I am notoriously willing to ask simple-minded questions. So here's one. What makes a building a townhouse? The number of apartments, the location, the design? What is a townhouse?
you're not the only one asking that, and that's what makes the statistics so difficult. And that's why we track everything that looks like a townhouse from the outside, because in 1880 or 1910, that's a long time ago, these townhouses were almost all built as single-family houses. And there have been a couple of world wars, a couple of depressions since then, and they've been divided up into multifamilies. So very often a house that looks just amazing from the outside could have 4 or 6 or 8 or even 10 apartments in it. So what the trend is, if we ignore the ones that are more than single family, more than 2 family, more than 3 family, if we ignore those, then that's it. When we're doing our statistics and our analysis, it completely throws it off, because somebody could be buying a vacant 10-unit building, making it into a single family. That's a real townhouse. It's a real, so I should say they're all real townhouses.
Yeah.
But I don't know, something like some percentage, like 50% of the houses are not single family, more than 50%. So that gets us into other layers, Andy, which we're experts in, but we're not happy to be experts in. And that's all the rent regulations that go with these townhouses. There can be rent stabilized apartments, there can be rent control apartments. And in the last couple of years, it's made it much more difficult as well, with the laws in Albany to be able to grow the owner's unit.
And I know from our firm's experience that Airbnb is not the answer.
Right.
A lot of people
learned that the hard way.
Right.
Well, give us a war story. What do you mean by the hard way?
They're selling.
Well, yeah.
So
we had a while ago, many years back now, we had a situation where the owners thought it would be financially very lucrative for them to do, short-term rental type hotel stays, and the fire marshals kept shutting them down, kept giving them tickets, violations, and then what started out as a very profitable venture very soon turned into something that they were, fighting off the city all the time, and eventually they had to sell.
And this was even before Airbnb got going.
Yeah,
So,
I get it. You know what? Let grandma live in the other unit, right?
Right.
Or all too often in today's environment, your adult children are going to move back into the house.
But that's one of the reasons. Back to you mentioned the book in the beginning. The reason we wrote the book and the reason it was so necessary and still is necessary is that there are basically 8 basic reasons why mistakes that owners make when they're selling a townhouse. And one of them, Andy, you'll appreciate, is hiring the wrong attorney. Because
I don't mean to be cruel to my colleagues, but what makes it the right attorney?
Well, the right attorney is somebody who has an expertise in townhouses as opposed to just condos and apartments. And the right attorney is somebody who is going to be responsive and not having a specialty of being a litigator and being confrontational. And the right attorney is the one who communicates well, from our point of view, who communicates well with the agents, because we have to be the go-between to move the ball. And believe it or not, no, you believe it, is the getting from the accepted offer to the contract signed takes weeks and weeks. Typically, it doesn't happen in 2 or 3 or 4 days. And we got one signed the other day that the main negotiations happened in July, so we're October. And so we hold our breath at the moment when we find out, and we also recommend attorneys, and we've recommended you a number of times with success, so thank you. We recommend attorneys because we want people to have the opportunity to at least select from an attorney who has expertise, because otherwise, you don't want to hear the wrong reasons, but we have attorneys who will pop out something that they found on that's a computer, generated.
Right, a boilerplate that could have been from a new development house somewhere, not even in the city.
And
Which
so
we've
then it's
actually
starting
had that.
from scratch on a contract that doesn't need to happen for those who know about townhouse contracts. So that's one example.
Well, there's many.
Well, thank you. I know our huge audience appreciates hearing that, as do I. But what are some of the other reasons, some of the other key takeaways from your book? Because I know I appreciate that the heavy lifting is done by you in helping the buyers and the sellers not only reach an agreement, but carry it out. So give us some more highlights from the book.
So I think probably something that's one of our biggest, what we spend the most time with owners on is pricing. And once you've already resolved to sell, the importance of pricing the townhouse correctly. And townhouses have been notoriously difficult to price, only because, when you compare it to an apartment building where you have 50 units in the same line, and there's a clear track record of where they sold. Each townhouse is so different, not just location, which is the obvious one, and condition is the obvious one, but block per block is completely different. Even on the same street, one townhouse might have a desirable garden, and the one we're trying to sell has a garden that's somehow obstructed by a big building in the back. So that all affects pricing. And, we take a long time to show owners why we're suggesting a certain price. A typical townhouse, I would say right now, let's say up to $8 million, takes about 6 to 9 months to get into contract. And a lot of that has to do, it's a reflection of the price. So we have the ones that are on the market for 12 months plus, and we go through various pricing. But at the end of the day, especially in the recent markets we've been in, it is important to list a townhouse pretty close to what we say is the value range.
Brokers get a bad rep, and they don't deserve it. As you just pointed out, there is a lot of very complicated, intimate knowledge and explaining that has to go on for your client to understand what their value is and what their time is worth. Sure, you can price it at $12 million and wait 7 years and maybe you'll get a buyer, but what is the point of that? It doesn't really serve anything.
But here's what we run up against, and this is just human nature. And my friend Nicole has witnessed this with me when I was selling a townhouse in Chelsea. It's human nature to want to get the very best price that's possible, and so it pulls at you when you have there in New York City. There's 14,000, 16,000 real estate agents, right? And they'd all love to have a townhouse listing. And we built our reputation by, I'm the chair of the admissions committee of the Real Estate Board of New York. I got there by us treating other brokers fairly, because that's a lot of the reputation, is how we treat other brokers fairly. But we've found that when you're pricing a house, we're not only needing to tell the owner the truth about the real value, not blowing smoke, but the real value. We have to also, at the same time, convince them to hire us compared to the people who are blowing smoke, who are saying, trust me, I know about this. I just give me a shot at it. I'll get you X amount, 20%, God knows how much above what the real value is. So we have to really, our work is a double-edged. It's to convince them to hire us, which we do have success with 72% of the time. So we're doing good on that front. But we have to also help them really understand from the very beginning what the real value is. And you can't slip into this easy stuff of price per square foot or statistical averages, or it gets into your point about what's the what is a townhouse. So they're not including some of the other sales when they get into some statistics. They're only doing 1, 2, 3 families. They're only doing certain neighborhoods. They're only doing within the last 6 or 8 months. These things don't work with townhouses where it's a very vertical market. You don't have a lot of choices. So it's a double thing that we have to do, and it's showtime for us when we do a lot of hours of preparation for every time we're doing a presentation like that, because it's so critical. Because then we can point back to that analysis and show them that analysis as we move through the process. That's one point. The other point, though, is the asking price versus the
right. Well, I'll just say this, that at the end of the day, it's about experience, and we just sell townhouses. So not only have we seen all the townhouses that we're describing when we're going through our comps and value presentation, but not that we've sold all of them, obviously, but the townhouse community is a small community. A lot of times we know where the bids were, and so like that's real-time information that if you don't sell townhouses on a regular basis, you would really not have that info. So I think that's just the point about our experience. And we do always give a value. So Dexter always says we tell the truth. We do. It's always like we have a value range. So let's say we say 4.6 to 5.0. And then we always like to ask a small increment above the top end of the value. Sometimes, though, owners want to try for more, but at least we walked away knowing that we did this whole presentation, and then we can refer back to it during negotiations or when we're trying to get a price adjustment.
Well, I think the key for the role of the professionals such as yourselves in this role, in this setting, is you are not the client. You have experience, but also distance. This is not your home. This is not your investment. Yes, you're going to earn your money, and believe me, you do. But you have an objectivity that the seller can't have, or the buyer for that matter, and they shouldn't expect to. I mean, the best you can hope for is to have your client recognize that they don't have the answer, and they're going to the experts who do. And if they listen, they're going to get the best value that they can. And if they don't listen, not so much.
Yeah, it really requires building up a trust, as Nicole said, over years even. And Nicole and I have worked together for 15 years now, and we can almost hear each other thinking, and we can be on Zoom calls. We're in different rooms, and we actually know what the other person's going to say next. But we also build that up very often with owners in advance of a sale. So in advance of when they're going to sell. So we give them the information and the value, but we also, one of the other key things that the book points out is the appeal of the house. And there's this big word called staging, right? Well, staging is partly not very glorious. It's called paint. It's called presentation of the entry area, the look from the outside of the building. And then we'll go to other. We had an owner consult with us recently, and we were very successfully with that one, where the parlor floor of the townhouse had been, the ceilings had been lowered. So there were maybe 8-foot ceilings on a 13-foot parlor level. And you walked in, it just felt tight, and it didn't feel like we wanted to just be for a townhouse.
Well, and it was also 2 apartments.
And it was 2 apartments.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, and parlor floors are usually, most of the time, one of the prettiest floors in the building. So especially if the townhouse has a stoop, you take the client up the stoop and you want them to fall in love with that floor. In this particular building, it didn't have that parlor floor as it was. It had been a rental building for 40 years or so. And so we had met with the owners, and she was shocked when we had suggested to take a sledgehammer.
A big hammer.
It's not going to be pretty. just opened up the floor. We already, the house needs a renovation. It's obvious. It's an 8-unit building. It's vacant. But we can highlight the best parts of the building. That's the ceiling height on the parlor floor. And actually, once we opened up the parlor floor, we smashed the wall between the 2 apartments. The light from both sides was so incredible that I have to say, the building needs a complete renovation, but everyone tells me that the building shows wonderfully.
And we added some white paint.
Well, a lot of white paint.
We added a lot of white paint, but so if you can imagine, it did not require finishing it at all. You could
There's exposed pipes.
Still see exposed pipes, whatever, but you walk into a glorious loft-like feeling part of the floor with the tall ceilings, and that really is what the buyer is going to be doing with it down the road. So why not be able to see it now and see it in this house? So that's just one example of what we've worked with owners, including with tenants, where there's been money that got arranged with the tenant for the tenant to vacate, very friendly between the seller and the tenant who was there, long-term tenant, and things like, for example, buying them an apartment. So the building becomes a vacant townhouse, and the tenant is happy because they own an apartment. There's a lot of things that come into play here that if we have enough lead time, we can optimize, and it translates into hundreds of thousands, but very often millions of dollars of value that we're adding if we're consulted in advance.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason people buy these homes, because they are unique and gorgeous, and situated for city life. They may have some green space or not, but you can get to Central Park, or you can get to Riverside Park, or you can go to the roof. Nicole and I were at a house showing the other day where I told her I would buy it and move in and live on the roof because the renovation had made such a gorgeous, beautiful space with fantastic views. All right, we're getting close to the end here, so I have.
But Andy, there's one thing I want to point out here. This is on the buyer side. Sellers are often buyers, right? So we have examples where seller will come to us and say, I really need to see what else is out there.
I think, right, a big stumbling block is, how can I choose to sell if I can't even imagine where I'm going to live? And some of our clients, we haven't even put the house on the market yet, and I'm already showing them just options of condos to make them, to start to shift their thinking. And start to imagine moving out of their duplex, triplex, or single family home into a 2, 3, 4 bedroom maybe. And it's a big emotional shift. And so, and it's really, if you are a seller, I think just the ease of having an agent on both sides makes the process so much smoother.
Yeah. That's a very important insight. This is an intimate event, a transaction process, whatever you want to call it. I have adult children.
There's no shortcuts on that one, by the way. You have to. It's the real shoe leather. See the places you can't tell from the pictures. Everybody makes the pictures look good. You got to go out there. You got to see them. You got to try the space on almost to see how it feels to you. And then you start to get your visual, what I like to call visual vocabulary. You've expanded your visual vocabulary, what's possible, how you might fit in it. And so we like doing that because it really makes it much more of an organic process.
Well, and it's a hand-holding process. I have adult children, and the dirty secret is the empty nest is great. I love my children, but we downsized. We moved to a condo. We see them. We're happy for them. God bless. It's their turn to go out and live their lives. We're not here. we're not here to talk about family life, but that is part of what a house is about, right? And for the sellers as much as for the buyers. And it's just another function of the value that Townhouse Experts, your company, provides when you recognize the need for that service. But I was going to ask a last trick question. Dexter, do you still have the Western saddle in your office?
Oh, geez. Well, I don't.
I don't.
Where is it? It was in the storage right now.
Oh.
And not only do I not have that, I don't have in the office the Statue of Liberty, the 8-foot tall Statue of Liberty that we acquired from a townhouse. Townhouse owners, by the way, in order to be a townhouse owner, you have to be idiosyncratic in some kind of way. That's just the way it goes. It's in your DNA. And so, of course, where would we find an 8-foot tall copper or whatever it's made of?
It's heavy.
It's heavy. It's real Statue of Liberty.
That is a riot. For our audience, I'll point out that Dexter has a ranch in Wyoming. Am I right? Or is it Colorado?
In the mountains of Colorado.
So, he's a for real urban cowboy.
Right. We can give team roping lessons if you want.
Well, all right then. You know what?
Not before.
Tell everybody how they can reach you and what is the best step to take next when they want the help that you could provide.
Well, they should definitely first visit our website. It's townhouseexperts.com. And I am always available via email. It's just Nicole, Nicole, @townhouseexperts.com. And Dexter is Dexter @townhouseexperts.com. That would be the best way to reach us.
Yeah.
Is there thank you. I appreciate that. And I know the folks watching too as well. Is there anything in particular that you're looking for? You've got an army of folks that you're working with. Is there something out there in the world of podcast listeners and watchers that might help some of your existing clients? What might be of help?
Well, that's a good question. We are experimenting, and this is just new information to me. We're experimenting with different social media, and social media does not sell a townhouse, but it helps owners feel better, buyers feel better about their new house. And we have an associate now who has been actively doing things. And I heard the other day that we had 8,000 viewings of one of our Instagram posts. And yesterday I learned that it's now up to 16,000. So by getting really top photographers, top image, all that sort of stuff. So there's a teamwork that's happening more and more within social media, and it's not just the young people. It's people that are enjoying it. My parents who are 90 are fooling around with it.
Yeah.
So
it's a brave new world. And so
Yes.
for those of you out there who want the best possible real-time, real life, and online digital augmented reality experience, come to the Townhouse Experts. All right, then. Well, this has really been a pleasure, as always, and I appreciate you being available, and I look forward to our continued success in this market. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You have been listening to Real Estate Problems into Profits with me, your host, Andrew Weltchek, a partner with Cohen Hochman Allen Attorneys at Law in New York City. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others. You can listen to prior episodes on www.chalegalteam.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Thank you.